Morgan Grittith joining us now on the John Fredericks Radio Network. Congressman, Republican, 9th District, Southwest Virginia. Congressman, great to have you.
Great to be with you. How are you doing this morning?
I'm really fired up today. Got a lot going on. Let's get right to Venezuela. A lot of the Democrats complaining that Vice President Pence has injected himself into a foreign country, could be inciting violence. Yet the president has said that all options are open, and they would like to see, obviously, regime change and Guaido get in, because Venezuelan people are starving, and it's a dreadful regime that Maduro has. What say you?
It's a dreadful regime. I think the president's right. Fascinating. The Democrats are not unified on this. I was on the floor last night when there weren't a whole lot of people on the floor, and they were doing what we call 1-minute speeches. And Democrat Congresswoman Murphy from Florida stood up on the floor and gave a speech and said he's lost the confidence of the people and he needs to go. And I thought it was very interesting. I gave her a hear, but she was absolutely right. But so this is not, the Democrats are not monolithic on this. There's some divide there. There's some of them that don't. Now, we'll note that at approximately 6 months of age, she and her family escaped from Vietnam. And she grew up in Virginia, and seems that maybe some of that family history is coming back, and she's like, look, if they use violence against their own people, then the United States should use whatever means that we think is appropriate to push him out. But she was hoping that he would go on his own.
Well, I think that's what we're all hoping. And I thought it was stunning. I want to get your comment on this. Secretary Pompeo yesterday on NBC News telling Lester Holt, I was really stunned by this. He said that, well, Maduro was all set to get on an airplane, go to Havana, and basically abdicate. And high-ranking officials at the Russian Federation told him to stay put. What do you make of that, Congressman?
Well, obviously, Mike wouldn't have said it if it weren't fact. I used to be his seatmate on the Energy and Commerce Committee on some of our subcommittees, right. And he's a great guy. And you know, it just goes to show that the Russian bear is playing worldwide politics, and they've got a lot invested down there. The Cubans have a lot invested down there, and you know, unbelievable that we could have had a peaceful resolution, and the Russians don't want us to have a peaceful resolution in South America and get that country back on track. I mean, Venezuela has great natural resources and really was an economic powerhouse before the socialists took over. It's
really an incredible story there. They were such a rich and engaging country, and now since the socialist regime has been there, it's a complete disaster. No electricity, people starving, can't get food. There's a refugee problem, a mass exodus there. And look, I think the administration has taken the exact right position here. They're trying to get regime change, and they're trying to do it in a peaceful, orderly way. But when people are starving, look, as soon as the military can't get paid, and that day is coming, it's over, right? Then they're going to abandon the guy. The only reason they stay there is because they're making a lot of money through their cartel money and things of that nature. We're with Morgan Grittith, Congressman, 9th District, Republican, that's Southwest Virginia area. Morgan, let's get to the hearing today. William Barr going to the Senate Judiciary Committee. I know you're in the lower chamber, but all the rage now is that Robert Mueller sent a letter to William Barr. He didn't like his summary, but yet William Barr has released the entire 435-page document. I mean, what's the difference with if he didn't like his summary or not? Go to gov.com, put on your internet, download it, and read it. Tell me, sir, here what I'm missing.
Well, you're not missing anything. It's just that the Democrats have for, 2 years told everybody that this report was going to show that the president was a traitor and that he'd done all these horrible things. It didn't show that at all. It showed that he got frustrated at times, that he, as you and I know, and I have said this, you and I don't agree completely on this. I think sometimes he tweets things he ought not tweet.
Right.
That being said, That's all the report shows, that he was frustrated. But I was telling a reporter yesterday, actions speak louder than words. The president said, I'm upset about this, and he said it in language that I probably wouldn't have used.
Right.
But he never fired the people who didn't fire the people that he said, I got to get rid of this guy. And when they didn't do it, he didn't fire those people. You know, he dealt with Jeff Sessions for long after that situation had blown over.
Right.
Frankly, I'd have fired Comey day one.
Right.
He let Comey stay on far longer than he probably should have, based on his bad actions before Trump took office.
Right.
And there's others afterwards, but I'm just saying there were lots of things that the president said, okay, you know. So the Democrats, all they've got is that he did a verbal kick of a chair in his office and said, when will they stop this madness? And if you look at the report, it says there has to be a corrupt intent to have any obstruction. Why can you have a corrupt intent when you didn't do anything wrong on collusion?
Unbelievable.
The answer is I don't think you can. But they've got to try to make something out of nothing. So they've got to take whatever thread is out there. So Mueller writes a letter saying he didn't think that the tone came across correctly. When he was asked, he said, did you think that the letter was inaccurate? I heard somebody on one of the shows I was listening to in the night say, he said, well, no, it was accurate. I just didn't think the tone came across the way I would have wanted it to. Look, we're down to tone? That's what we're going to deal with? Oh, my gosh, the tone wasn't exactly what I thought it should have been. But it was accurate. What's important is it was accurate. The report shows no collusion, and it shows somebody who's frustrated because they're being falsely investigated. That's what we have.
And it's released to the public. This is what it dumbfounds me. It would be one thing if we never saw it and Attorney General Barr was withholding the release of it for whatever reason. Then you could say, well, okay, Mueller's disputing his analysis, his summary of it. It's released. Go look it up. Go online, download it, read the 500 pages, Absolutely. Circle and highlight whatever you don't like, do an op-ed. I mean, it's right there.
But let me say this, and I think it's something important. I think the political folks inside the Beltway, including myself, and I think that the press corps, including yourself, are worried about this a whole lot more than the American people. I did one of my teletown halls last night, hundreds of people on the call, and my chief was more in touch than I was because I was like, okay, I got to be ready for all these questions on the Mueller report. Not one question in the hour of questions I took from constituents on the eastern end of my district. Not one person brought it up. Did they bring up the wall? Yes. Did they bring up the economy? Yes. Did they bring up the Mueller report? No. So maybe we're talking about something the American people are already over.
Let's hope so. We have to cover it, as you know, when you pointed that out. But Kara will tell you this. I got in today at what time I get in, Kara, 5:50, and the first thing I said is, you know what? I'm in a bad mood already when I walk in because it's another day I have to cover this ridiculous Russian collusion hoax, the fake news, the Mueller report, the Barr test. Like, who cares? Let's talk about infrastructure, roads, and bridges or something. But no, we're back at it again. All right, look, I've got to read you a text here by one of your fans, Morgan. Julie Cogsdale in New Kent says, I love Morgan, love when he's on, wait for him to come on. I used to work for him when he was majority leader in the House of Delegates. He's smart, he's honest, and he's a great congressman. So there is Julie Cogsdale, Congressman, from New Kent, showing you the love.
Well, Julie's a great lady, and she's doing great work in the Virginia House. But anyway, she's a good lady, and I appreciate her comments.
Okay, let's get to the infrastructure deal the president meeting with yesterday. Looks like they agreed on $2 trillion. I like that. It's a good round number. I'm for roads and bridges. I'm for that. I'm for improving the rail on Amtrak. I'm for that. Now, the question is, where do you get the $2 trillion and how do you pay for it? And that's yet to be resolved. What do you think?
Well, I think that's the trap, and I think it's a trap, and that actually came up on the call last night, too. The lady said, this is a trap. Be careful. And I think she's right, as I slept on it. And the problem is the Democrats will now go out and say they reached an agreement with the president, but he wouldn't follow through. And what they want is they want tax increases across the board. They want income tax increases. Schumer's already said pretty much that. And, you know, I understand we have to find the money somewhere, and I'm willing to look at some reasonable things, but they want to undo the tax cuts that got this economy running, you know, a whole lot better, as you've been talking about this morning, than when we had Obama and Joe Biden in office. And they want to reverse that. And so we have to be careful, and that may be the trap. Am I for the money? Am I willing to make a compromise? Am I willing to, you know, say that we have to spend money, but we need to figure out how we're going to find it. We need to find it in some creative ways. We also need to cut a little spending on stuff that we don't have to have in Washington, D.C. that's sacrosanct. And, you know, any member of Congress can go into the budget and pull out 5 or 6 things that they think, why are we still spending money on this? Might have been a great project in 1952, but it's not necessary anymore. But we still spend the money. And so we've got to figure out how we're going to do it. And we can't just say we're going to raise taxes. And that's the trap. I'm afraid the Democrats are going to say the president agreed to this and now he won't pay for it.
You know, Congressman, you're spot on. We're with Congressman Morgan Grittith, Republican, senior Republican, 9th District in Virginia. That's the Southwest Virginia area. He's from Salem. Congressman, you're spot on here, because when I saw this, I said the same thing to myself. I said, that's going to be the trap. The next thing the Democrats are going to say is, okay, let's pay for it by rolling back your tax cut, right? I mean, that's coming next, and then the fight becomes over that, and the whole thing devolves. Let me ask you something else. For years and years and years, your colleague Rob Whitman in Congress, also your former colleague in the House of Delegates, has been calling on getting the budget done before the deadline so we don't have continuing resolutions and shutdowns. Well, here it is coming up May 1st today, right? No talk about the next budget. I mean, when are you guys going to sit down and do what Whitman says and get some kind of a budget and start fighting it out over the summer instead of waiting 5 days before you run out of money and the government has to shut down? And then especially if it's before the Virginia local state elections in 2019, which would sink the Republicans.
Yeah, the vast majority of folks in D.C. Just soon have it go that way. Those of us in the Freedom Caucus would like to see it resolved sooner, and we're trying to figure out ways that we can encourage leadership to do that. You wait till 5 days before the deadline, we're all trapped. We get a bad deal. It's not good for us, but I will tell you, leadership folks on both sides of the aisle, in both houses, seem to think this is a better way to go. I don't. And, you know, when you have the fights on the floor and you go line by line and you have the knockout, drag-out fights, and you know, you're taking votes at 2 o'clock in the morning, it's not fun. But nobody said this job was supposed to be fun in that way. And what happens is you win some and you lose some. But you end up with a better product for the American people instead of just coming out and patching the old budget together and, you know, adding a few bells and whistles to make the American people think we've actually done something good. It's a bad way to do business. The Virginia House of Delegates, when I served there, didn't do it that way. I don't think they do it that way now. And sometimes there are disappointments. And sometimes, you know, you don't get things that you probably ought to have gotten. But you end up with an overall better project than you do with just taking the old budget and putting a few patches on it.
Well, what the professional politicians want to do is wait till 5 days at the end. And look, if you're on the Democratic side, this is your perfect storm. You wait till 5 days, you put all kinds of crap in it, you get whatever you want, and then if the Republicans object, the government shuts down, and you call it the Trump shutdown. I mean, how many times are we going to kick the football and Lucy picks it up and we fall on our butt? Shutdowns don't work. We get blamed. We lose. Mark Warner talks about families that, you know, can't buy food. How many times do we go through this? Like, we can't win. I don't want to do it. And if you do it in 2019, you basically ensure that Democrats take over the Virginia Senate and the House in the middle of a shutdown again. Like, how many times do you go down the same path before finally you say, I'm tired of this, I'm going to lose, and change it? But as you said, leadership on the other side has no appetite for that because they know at the end of the day they have the shutdown card, and that works for them. Sick.
Yeah.
It's sick.
And I think Republicans hold in the Virginia House and probably in the Senate, but more likely in the House because of what's happened in Richmond this year. Again, people in my district at least are still talking about the governor's comments on abortion and after-birth infanticide. And that is still a big topic, and that's going to hurt the Democrats because a lot of people who weren't energized are now energized. They understand. And so that's going to help the Republicans. The only thing that could take it away is a government shutdown. And, I'm not likely to vote for that compromise, whatever it might be, 5 days beforehand. If we had a knockdown, drag-out fight on the floor, I'd be more likely to vote for it. But we really don't need a shutdown right before the elections.
Thank you. Exactly. Now, I've only got a half a minute, but it's time for us to make predictions. I'm predicting Bernie Sanders is going to be the Democratic nominee for president 2020. Morgan Griffith, your prediction right now, if you had to do it today.
I would say Joe Biden pulls it out in spite of all of his flaws.
All right. Morgan Griffith is going to go with Biden. Bernie Sanders is going to be the nominee. He's going to beat him in Milwaukee. If he goes into Milwaukee and he has a lead, there's no way they're going to steal it from him again. They already stole it from him in 2016. Bernie Sanders is going to be the nominee. He's going to come to Southwest Virginia in your neck of the woods, have a rally, and draw, 25 people. Congressman, thanks for being with us. Always
Thank
good
you.
to have
go
you.
to Blacksburg and get 150. All right, take care.
Let's go to Blacksburg. Linda McMahon coming up.